The Knicks finally got back on the winning track against a tanking team, but they didn't make it easy, but they still did it no matter what. We're talking about the Knicks win over the Wiz next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site The Strickland, which you can find at strick.land. And he's Gavin Shaw, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster, And we would like to thank you for making Locked On Knicks first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit that auto download function on your favorite podcast app or the notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode. On today's episode, we will be talking through the Knicks win over the Wizards, 122-103. Looked like a blowout. Wasn't quite so much of one in the third quarter when the Knicks really let their foot off the gas. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about great point guard play in the first half. Payne doing well in a start, perhaps making a case for himself to be in the starting lineup without Jalen Brunson while he is still out. Also, Tyler Kolek having a really good game. Mikal Bridges, Karl-Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby all taking turns being the superstar at different points in this game. So we got lots to talk about there. But if that's not enough for you and you want some more Locked On Knicks in your life, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Knicks daily newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter. So Gavin, the Knicks came into this one 2 straight games against teams that they probably should have beaten. They found a way to lose. And so they came into this one, went up by a lot of points in the first half. It looked like, they were going to potentially hold the Wizards to like 70 points in this game. Things were looking real good for them. Then the third quarter of doom strikes. They just fully let their foot off the gas. Wizards get back within 4. Things are starting to get a little testy. And then OG Anunoby, thankfully, down the stretch, kind of put his stamp on the game after you had already seen Karl-Anthony Towns put his stamp on the first quarter. Mikal Bridges put his stamp on the second quarter. The Knicks end up winning this thing. All 3 of those stars, 31 points for Cat, 27 points for Bridges, 23 points for OG. They shined in a great way. Payne had a good start with 13 points and 7 assists in this game. Tyler Kolek with 4 points and 8 assists, 7 of which came in just a single quarter, which was crazy. So lots of meat on the bone here. Where do you want to start with this? Maybe shouldn't have been as up and down game as it was, but it was an up and down game nonetheless for the Knicks.
Yeah, Knicks had built that third quarter lead for people who didn't watch. It was 82-31 and or 50, not 31. Jesus, that would be bad. Though it kind of felt like that. It was 82-51. And then by 2 minutes into the fourth quarter, it was 92-88. It was a 37-10 stretch for the Wizards. But I actually don't want to start there. I've gotten some feedback that I've been a little too negative on this podcast recently. Also, sometimes that I've been too positive. So I don't know what to do with that. But I do think the second quarter was the defining stretch of this game. And really the difference to me was the point guard play. In the first half, again, none of this is saying anything bad about Deuce McBride. I think he's, on the whole, Alex, played exceptionally well since Jalen Brunson got hurt. He is just not a point guard. And in a lot of ways, Jalen Brunson isn't a traditional point guard in your Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, Magic Johnson sense, where his main goal on the court is to hunt out shots for other guys. His main goal is to hunt out shots for himself. And it should be, because he's like one of the 3 or 4 best scorers on planet Earth. But I think it was a nice change of pace for the Knicks to have Payne, who had such a great first quarter, right at something like 80% of his production in this game came in the first quarter. 10 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds for him in the opening period. And then Kolek, you mentioned, 7 assists in the first 11 minutes of the second quarter. 5 of them go for threes. And what stood out to me was just the intention with both those guys is to get off the ball and make simple plays. And when you have finishers like Mikal Bridges, like Karl-Anthony Towns, right? Elite options. You've seen so many times this year where Jalen Brunson has failed to make like a simple hook pass to Karl-Anthony Towns wide open on a pick and pop and instead goes downhill. And Payne and Kolek, I think over and over and over again, they weren't like Kolek had some really nice ones that we'll get into, but they weren't like just these genius next level passes. It was just, hey, like I have two. This guy has an advantage. I'm content to just get off the ball and let my guy play 4-on-3, let my guy shoot an open three. And I think that did wonders to greasing the wheels of the Knicks offense. And I feel like we've seen that all season long when Cam Payne's been in the game. We've seen that in the limited opportunities Tyler Kolek got. Both those guys just create a smoother, I would say, more integrated offense across the board. And I think it led to a lot of great stuff on the night for the Knicks.
Yeah, Kolek in particular in that second quarter, like really, it's like you said, he didn't do anything flashy. That I was just rewatching some of his passes that he made, and I mean, nothing really stands out. They were just the smart play, and I think that sometimes, again, I don't want to use this as an opportunity to like dump on Deuce at all either. Like that's not his forte. Like he's more of a scoring, smaller two guard. And unfortunately, when Brunson's out, like they try to just kind of slot him in because he's just next man up. But it creates this situation where you don't really have a point guard out there. And I think that we've seen that exposed in the last few games where like you can have Josh Hart out there and have him attempt to run offense, but he's not, he can't just work from a standstill and create something and create an opportunity for one of his teammates that way all the time. He's much better if he's in more of a downhill situation, and then he makes great reads out of those, which we see all the time with like a quick handoff at the top from Brunson, who draws the defensive attention, and then Josh Hart just gets going downhill and then makes a really great read off of that, whether it's to a cutter coming in from the corner or kicking it out to a shooter in the corner or whatever. That's sort of like Josh Hart's bread and butter. Mikal Bridges like has some of the ability to kind of break someone down to create a shot for himself, which we've talked about, them not utilizing enough over the year. But he doesn't really have that ability to like break someone down and like get into a Nash dribble or whatever, get to the baseline, work his way back out, reassess the situation and find an open shooter or something. And that's just sort of the little things that we saw Payne and Kolek do. But Kolek, especially in that second quarter, he did like one of everything. It was like he did like the whole like starter pack, right? He did the Nash dribble out for a quick assist for a three. He did, just a little swing pass. He got at top of the key off a rebound from someone and just made a quick little swing to Bridges. He made the full cross court look to Bridges where the defense was too tilted to one side. Bridges relocates to the one corner and Kolek just like dimes it from the opposite elbow to all the way across the court to Bridges for a three. Just little stuff like that really worked. And it was the same with Cam early. It was like, even if the shots weren't going in, he precipitated that like ball movement, like he just started the train, and I feel like that's what the Knicks have been missing these last few games is just that person to be the conductor, and Brunson has shown that. Like I'll give Brunson his props as a passer this year. I think that there's been a lot of games where we've looked at it and been like, wow, I didn't know that Brunson had a 17 assist night in his repertoire. Like I didn't think that was something that he would ever do. When before this season, it was rare for him to even hit 10 assists. And I feel like he's hit that in probably, without looking the stat up, probably like 15 games or something this year, which is a huge uptake for him. So, Brunson does do that on occasion, although I think lately they've been falling more into the ISO Brunson offense, which I feel like is kind of more of a Tibbs thing than a Brunson thing. But either way, it was kind of just what they needed. I think just someone that could maintain the flow of the game, make the right pass, and they got that all first half with Cam Payne and with Tyler Kolek.
Yeah, I think the only flaw, or maybe not the only flaw, but the main issue I've had with Brunson's playmaking this year is there's just a lot of meat on the bone to set Cat up for easy shots. And the fact that Cat has made, I think the number is still at something like 7 corner threes this entire season. I would say that, it's partially just where Cat chooses to be positioned on the court and that he doesn't tend to end up there and he's more so on the wings. But I would say that's partially an indictment on Jalen Brunson. And like Brunson, just often there was a stretch, I think right after the All-Star break, or maybe right before the All-Star break, where he started hitting this pass, but just that like simple hook pass on a pick and pop to Cat for 3. Like it just feels like there are easy plays to be made that are sometimes overcomplicated because that is just not really JB's first instinct. And it is, to your point, Tyler Kolek's first instinct. The two that really stood out to me, one of them you mentioned, but I was going to mention it again. He had the one in transition to Mikal where it was kind of like a half look away. I don't know if I want to give him full credit for a no look, but he is, I said it this summer, I said it early this season. I think it would be fair to describe him as a passing savant and quite possibly already one of the 10 to, like, if you want to stretch it out, 15, maybe 20. But I would lean 10, like most talented passers in the NBA right now, which is extraordinary for a second round rookie and tells you that he has some real limitations in other areas. If not, like he would undeniably have a role on this team already. But his sense of timing and pace and his ability to put spin on the ball so it gets to a shooter at the right time in their pocket every single time is extraordinary. Like at least in my memory, Pablo Prigioni was really good. I don't remember like the Jason Kidd, obviously, though he was 40 at that point. I don't really remember the Knicks having a passer like this, like that bounce pass to Mikal. Like Mikal was still cutting baseline and Kolek, it was like a bowling ball style bounce pass, like put just the right amount of weight on it that it bounces right into Mikal's hands, like as he's turning the corner to get beyond the 3-point line. That cross court pass you mentioned, like exact same thing. Like it's a chest pass and he puts just enough weight on it that it hits Mikal right as he gets into his motion, right in the shooting pocket, allows him to rise up for 3. It is not a coincidence that guys make shots at such a high rate off his passes. Like they are on time, they're on target. It's not that Brunson, Payne, and even Deuce don't throw good passes. It is that Kolek is throwing perfect passes. And just the chemistry between him and Mikal is really good. Like someone pointed this out defensively, they had like this perfect off-ball switch that we see guys on the Knicks mess up all the time, 60 games into the season. And it might've been our guy Jeff at Hot Hand Theory pointed this out. Like that's been botched all year long. And Kolek plays for the first time in the first half since January 1st. And like they're nailing that. They had another play where Mikal actually did have like a Nash dribble going around and he slung it out to Kolek. He set a ghost screen and Kolek just throws a perfect bounce pass between the double team. That's a pass that Brunson is great at. Mikal on the dive just gets a little short runner. And I thought Kolek did such a good job. I mean, Bridges, again, 20 points in the second quarter, was red hot. I mentioned it, 5 of those 7 assists in the second quarter go for threes. The 6th one was like Mikal's foot on the line. So it was just I'm trying to think of the word. I can't think of the right word, but it was a perfect example of shot creation from Tyler Kolek, the platonic ideal. That's what I was going for. Incredible second quarter. We have a lot more to talk about, though. I want to get into Cam Payne's first quarter, Mikal Bridges second, and then the Knicks collapse. We'll talk about it all next here on Locked On Knicks. But first, we want to tell you about our good friends over at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's so easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Surprising insights. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. All at one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan out long-term goals. They offer easy collaboration, managing money with your partner smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right, what's up, guys? We are back talking a 122 to 103 win over the Wizards. Alex, I'm going to give you a pick your own adventure. You could go down the campaign first quarter route, like how well he played. And I think getting the Knicks off to a really good start. Mikal Bridges, a set which we kind of talked about tangentially going over Tyler Kolek's night, but he got red hot. It kind of reminded me of the Spurs game. At one point, he had 14 straight points. Or we can go a little negative and talk about how the Knicks nearly blew this and maybe would have blown this if the Wizards weren't trying to lose. And after Marcus Smart turned into prime Steph Curry for a quarter, Brian Keefe, I'm not quite sure, said, all right, I've seen enough, and benched Marcus Smart the whole fourth quarter. Which direction do you want to go?
Yeah, talk about tanking team logic, right? It's like it's one guy is like basically winning them the game, and they just decided to sit him down. But hey, you got to get the young players reps, and I mean they certainly showed why they're young players at a certain point. I mean, we can get into the kind of negative aspects of that like one Marcus Smart was able to almost destabilize the entire Nick regime by himself in the third quarter. Because I definitely thought it was concerning that some of the stuff that the Knicks have been telegraphing lately, and that they, some of their issues still showed even against a team that is probably trying to get the number one overall pick right now, like trying their damnedest, because they definitely need that sort of talent on the team right now. But let's instead talk about let's talk about Landry Sham, or I'm sorry, Landry Sham.
I was like, whoa, that's a curveball.
Cameron Payne a little bit.
You're playing the Oregon Trail, and you're like, you know what? I'm going to take dysentery right at the start of the game.
This is what I get for watching a couple of campaigns assists, and the one that I happened to be on was the Landry Shamet assist.
That was nice.
From the end of the first quarter. Anyway, let's talk about Cameron Payne and what he brought in, which I think we touched a little bit in the first segment, but just that pushing the pace, the fearless shot making, I think was a big thing too. I mean, and that's something that he doesn't go about it in the same way as Brunson, but I think the Knicks have struggled to find that guy who's the go-to guy early in a game lately. And Payne, with the just complete lack of conscience on the offensive end, is kind of perfect for that. Where he just came out and was gunning right away, hits 2 of 4 of his threes in the first quarter, 3 of 6 overall. He did most of his offensive damage in the first quarter, but that was kind of all they needed, because then everybody else got going from there. Of course, then Mikal Bridges owned the second quarter, which maybe that's what we could talk about next. But along with Tyler Kolek, who owned it from a passing perspective. But lots of standout performances in this game. It was like everybody just kind of took their turn of being really, really good in this game. But Cam Payne's turn was in the first quarter. I mean, that's basically was my impression of it, was that he just gave that sort of, he had the aggressiveness, which it's not like the Knicks have been lacking necessarily. I think that some guys have tried to get off to good starts in recent games and whatever, but he had the ability to back it up with being able to create off the dribble and, get the offense going. He got Cat going to a degree in the first quarter too, which I think has been, something that the Knicks need. They need someone that can, be the catalyst for him, because Cat is not a guy.
Wait. The catalyst.
The Cat. I didn't even think about that. Wow. Yeah, I'm cooking. Go. Let him cook. Yeah. But yeah, the KAT list. But yeah, he was kind of the catalyst for Cat, with getting him going. And, for as much as we used to like and dislike certain things that Julius Randle used to do, for example, that was a guy that you knew as the second option with Brunson, you could kind of just give the ball to, and he was capable of creating offense for himself and others. And I think we've just kind of seen you need someone out there that can help create the offense for Cat, because he's just not. We saw multiple times, and even during that third quarter run, where he would just kind of get the ball in space, and it's at the end of the day, he's a 7 foot tall dude. His dribble is going to be higher. It's easy to double him and fluster him, because he's not necessarily the best at identifying those early. And then if you get a smaller guy in there, he's susceptible to getting the ball poked out, susceptible to turnovers and stuff like that. So it's tough to kind of put him in a position where even if you're trying to have him run the offense from the top of the 3-point line or something at the beginning of a possession, it's not an easy spot for him. It's much better to just get him going downhill, get him deep on the low block with spacing around him, so that way that someone can't close in that quickly, or at least if they're going to, that the Cat can identify it a little easier and get the ball back out to the perimeter. So I thought having Payne out there allowed for a much better environment for Cat to thrive early on too, which then I think carried on into the second half and then obviously he was a big part of the Knicks closing the game out with, I think it was 11 points in the fourth quarter, 21 in the second half. So, they needed that sort of presence for him. And I thought that was where Payne really shined the most to me.
Yeah, Alex Sarr has been playing really well for Washington, but Cat looked like Shaq against him, like just way too strong, way too big, way too fast, way too skilled. But I'm with you. That is the exact same thing that stood out to me. Like at one point, like he just said, kind of an impromptu screen for Payne, right as Payne caught it, and then just rolled, and Payne drew it out to hold two guys on him. And this is what I was talking about with Brunson earlier. Like these are just because like Brunson's looking to turn the corner and score there right away. Payne just slipped it in. Cat immediately got wrapped up by Bub. There was another entry pass where like he powered right through. I can't remember, it was the one where he powered through Sarr, or maybe it was Marcus Smart, but it was like a two-handed jam again. Looked like Shaq, but just the activity level of Payne was so good. Like even defensively, like he flew out of nowhere to tip a rebound out of Sarr's hand. Got this great screen from OG Anunoby that was probably moving and hit a three, then hit a 26-foot three off of Mikal Bridges post up. My single favorite play though, he had the entire game, was he loves to do this where he goes to a step back, little pump fake, a mediocre to bad defender will typically bite on it. I think it was Bub Carrington. He bit on it, whips it to Shamet, cuts to the rim, knowing that his defender's already behind him. Shamet whips it back, and then Payne goes the extra mile, makes the extra pass back to Shamet. Shamet hits a three, and it was like, man, like that is just like some quick hitting ball movement we saw early this season that we don't see as much. Again, I feel bad. I feel like I'm crapping on Brunson, but it's just not a play you see Brunson make. So it's refreshing to just see like a different style of point guard. He ended the first quarter with like a dance into a step back long two. It was just a great start for the Knicks. But we will finish this one up talking about Mikal Bridges' second quarter, getting a little bit more into Towns' night, OG closing this game out. And yes, we've been teasing it all night long. We'll finally tell you how the Knicks almost blew this ball game. We'll get into all that next here on Locked On Knicks. All right, Alex, on the pick your own adventure, I think it is finally time to talk about Mikal Bridges. He had, again, a 24-point first half, 20-point second quarter, 8 of 10 from the field, 4 for 4 from three, 2 steals. A lot of it, again, spoon-fed by Tyler Kolek. The one non-Kolek one that really stood out to me was this felt very similar to the Spurs game. It was like his 13th and 14th points for the Knicks in a row. He got like to the elbow and just did this reverse pivot, 1 foot fadeaway, defender right on him. And at that point, you were like, all right, this dude is like shooting into an ocean right now. Like he is just red hot. I thought in the first quarter, his defense was really good, like set the tone early with this really sweet recovery block on Keyshawn George. Quiet second half for him. If we were going to do like a full night assessment, like that has been one of my bigger issues with Mikal all season, where he'll have like a really hot quarter or a really hot half, and then like the aggressiveness will just go away. And I'm of the mind, when you're shooting that well, if you miss like 2 in a row to start the third, just keep chucking, man. Like you were clearly in a rhythm. Washington had no one that had any business guarding him. And then we see him kind of disappear. So I don't know if you want to focus on the second or just sort of assess the whole night. I was a little bit disappointed in how he finished the game, but that second quarter, again, gives you the idea of like just how good this guy can be when he gets really hot.
Yeah. And I think it's just a matter of like understanding that he's just not the guy that's going to like be standing at the elbow from three and like going like clap, 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 demand the ball, like give me the ball, like I'm going to shoot it. He doesn't want that, so I think it's just that becomes more of like a Tibbs thing and more of a thing on his teammates of like identifying, hey, this guy isn't necessarily going to like look for the opportunities. And I think Kolek was good about finding him in all of his spots, and that was kind of what got him going at first, and then allowed him to start hitting those little turnaround middies and whatever. Was that he was in his comfort zones of the corners, and then Kolek was like actively looking for him, and then Mikal would either get it from there or he would take a step in. Like he took a step in a couple times for a mid-range shot, whatever, but got it to him in spots where he's comfortable, where he only had to take a dribble or two and then could just get into a jump shot. And then go figure, he got hot and then was able to hit the more challenging stuff afterwards. And I think that's just sort of like, that's my overall takeaway from this game and from this season thus far with Mikal is like, you just have to make it an active priority to get him involved. And if you're not doing that, then you're going to run into issues. Now, some of that's on him. I do think that he should be more aggressive because he's clearly a talented scorer and everything else. But I think that he just gets too content to like just let the game come to him rather than trying to take the game. And I didn't watch enough of him with Brooklyn last year to know for sure if that was the case in Brooklyn too. But I seem to remember one of the games against the Knicks, he went off for like 30 points or something. And he looked more like he was asking for the ball there, or at least like wanting to play that role there. So I don't know if it's just kind of like what he settled into this year with the Knicks, what he feels like his role is with the Knicks. But, I wish that we would see more of him going after it, but I also wish there would be more of an effort like what we saw from Kolek to get him involved and, kind of force feed him. It's like, I think I forget what I made this analogy for the other day, but it's like the same thing, like force feeding like a toddler, like just, do whatever you got to do, make the little airplane, go into the hangar or whatever. And, try to make sure that, he's getting the opportunity to be great. And then, you can reassess from there. If the shot's not going in, then start being like, okay, well, we probably shouldn't try to spoon feed this guy anymore. But just knowing that he's not going to necessarily go after himself, I think is the big thing there. Trying to think who else to talk about next. I mean, do you maybe want to get into OG Anunoby's night and kind of how he closed the game out, or we haven't talked about Karl-Anthony Towns a ton, or we could talk about how the Knicks kind of almost blew this game.
Yeah, let's talk about the collapse. I feel like we've delayed it long enough, and I think part of Mikal, and I think we should note on Mikal, like he's done a much better job of this since Brunson went out. Like obviously going into the Spurs game, had that 5-game stretch where I was pretty content with his aggressiveness, and I give Tibbs a lot of credit for saying, hey, like dribble handoffs, running off screen, plays for you to get the ball. Like I think every single time him and Mitchell Robinson run a pick and roll, something good happens for the New York Knicks. So they certainly have been better about that. I think part of the issues with the offense in the third quarter where Washington just got red hot, but part of it was that the Knicks were aimless, is that they like went away from Tyler Kolek. Tibbs put him back in for like 2 minutes, and then Washington had that run going, but it wasn't really on Kolek. And then he goes back to Payne, and Payne like immediately throws the ball away, gives up an offensive rebound. And that was sort of the latter stages of that run. But let's take it back to the beginning. It opened up with the Wizards scoring 11 points in a row in under 70 seconds. AJ Johnson, who they got from the Bucks in the Chris Middleton trade, was cooking. He hit 2 threes. Again, the offense was stalling. Payne had a 3 off the side of the backboard. Cat clanked a midi. Cat got blocked. Mikal had 2 turnovers during this stretch. And then like another low light was Payne completely falling asleep off the ball on Jordan Poole, like literally falling asleep, where Poole was curling into a handoff and Payne was still just started moving from the wing to chase him. That was a really bad play. Another one in there where they gave up essentially a 4-point play where Josh Hart fouled Marcus Smart on an and one runner. Then Shamet doesn't box out. Jones, he was drafted a couple years ago. I don't know why I'm blanking. It was Kobe Jones. He failed to box him out. He ducks in for a putback dunk. That was not super great. And then Smart walked down Shamet and then for a layup, and then he hit a 3 over Kolek. So it was basically everyone was getting picked on by Marcus Smart, who just looked like he's put on some weight in his later years. He just looked like a 6'3" LeBron James out there. He was doing whatever he wanted. The Knicks, again, it felt like just no one wanted to take charge. Like Cat, who was cooking so much, was a little more reticent to go at Rashawn Holmes just because physically Holmes could hold up against him. And then there was no advantage creation. Like none of the passing that was there. Like Kolek had that one really nice drive on Johnson for a lefty layup. The final string of that run was Johnson beating Payne to a rebound. Then Smart got Mitch on a switch, put a 3 in his eye. That's what finally made it 92-88. The Knicks give them credit, and I'll let you talk about this because you've been hinting at it. 9-0 run from there and under 145 to kind of put the game away. Like OG and Cat both were just kind of said, all right, weight room, and that was it. But part of it was also the Wizards just not playing Marcus Smart from that point forward. But pretty embarrassing stretch for the Knicks. And you and I talked about it pregame. This has been a theme all year long where they go way up on bad teams, and it has it been 2 times, 3 times? Like I think of that Grizzlies game all year where the Knicks have actually got to sat pretty much the whole fourth quarter. Like it feels like they never play well enough in the third to get to that point.
Yeah, and that's always been I feel like their quarter of doom. It's
Yeah.
always the third quarter of doom where they're either, scratching and clawing and trying to get back from a deficit at that point, or they're just giving up a huge lead and then having to scratch and claw to win a game, which is where they found themselves in this one. But yeah, I'm with you on all the things that went wrong. I just think too, like it's just there were certain things that stood out to me where I was like, why are you guys not trying something different here? Like Tibbs is clearly trying to get the Cat and Mitch lineup, like try to make that a thing, and had that in there for part of the third quarter. And it just feels like they're not doing anything to actually utilize that lineup. Like it's just kind of like, let's just go about business as usual. But instead of having someone that can space the floor, we're going to have Mitch out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so then there's extra attention around the hoop around Cat. And that's where we kept seeing all those doubles and triples getting thrown at Cat. And he didn't know how to react to them. And that was leading to a lot of those turnovers, or, just starting the sequences where it was like the ball doesn't end up somewhere where it should be. I think also we've been seeing the last couple games too, like something about the way that the point guards are like trying to feed Mitch just doesn't quite work for me either. It's just like, don't try to get this guy the ball in a situation where he's gonna have to like put it on the floor or something. Like Mitch should be out there for like offensive rebounds, lobs, easy tosses inside where he can go up for a dunk or a layup or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty much it. Like I don't want to, try to say that Mitch hasn't shown some growth in some areas or whatever over the years, but like that's his bread and butter for a reason. Like that's what he's out there for. So if you're going to have him out there with Cat, you got to try kind of change how you play Cat too. And like perhaps start looking at more of like having Cat try to shoot threes in those scenarios and try to hunt that matchup where like Mitch can have the bigger center on him and then Cat can have a guy on him on the perimeter that he could just rise up and shoot over. Because that I certainly don't think that the Wizards in this one really had anyone that they could be like, hey, this guy is, just straight up tall and long enough to compete with Cat on the perimeter if Cat just wants to shoot over him. So, in that scenario too, it's like, oh, you have Rashawn Holmes out there, try to draw him inside with Mitch, and then if he's not going in there with Mitch and he's sticking with Cat on the perimeter, then just take the shot or whatever. If it doesn't go in, that Mitch is probably getting the rebound there. It felt like there wasn't a lot of thought put into like that lineup. And that was part of why things really, I think that was the lineup that was on the floor when it got to 4 points.
Yeah.
And that's when it felt like things to me were really falling apart. Like it was like, oh, they're within 20. Haha. Like, oh, within 12 now. Like, oh, this is cute. Like, okay, time to do something. And then all of a sudden they're within 4 after, Smart hits that like crazy transition 3, where he's like, it looked like
he's trying to draw a foul on that one.
Sort of, I guess. Yeah. But it didn't seem like a great attempt to draw a foul because there wasn't anybody like
crazy shot.
yeah, really on him. It just looked like when you like are going down the court in NBA 2K and accidentally hit the X button, instead and then like, or you're trying to pump fake or whatever and just like stop your dribble, but then you accidentally shoot it. It looked like one of those and it just goes in. So yeah. And again, they were sort of only stopped by the fact that their coach pulled Marcus Smart because he wanted to get his young players more playing time. And Smart's kind of just out there to be a shepherd at this point, rather than a guy that's winning you games. But as usual, Marcus Smart just kind of had his way with the Knicks there. But yeah, I don't know what else you want to touch on in this one. I feel like we've hit most of the standout performers at this point. Unfortunately, not a huge, other than Kolek's contributions with the assists, not a huge bench contribution game from like a scoring perspective or anything, and one that relied a lot on just kind of the stars doing star things at different points in the game. But I feel pretty confident wrapping this one up at this point.
Yeah, I just wanted to note to your point, God forbid they run a big pick and roll. That was a really effective play between Cat and Rudy Gobert, and Cat was sort of like the main guy, like for all of Rudy's frustrations his whole career, people not giving the ball, and Mitch has a little bit of that too. Again, like Mitch is just sort of like a Charmander to Rudy's Charizard. I would have said I forgot. Maybe I forgot what the middle one is.
Charmeleon.
Thank you. Yeah, that's why you're here, man. Yeah, they can, like, that is a great way to involve Mitchell Robinson to me. And like Cat with his height, like I think can actually throw Mitch an appropriate lob, because unlike Brunson, like he can, I'm taking a lot of pot shots at Jalen Brunson. I'm sorry, buddy. Get well soon. Like he can actually see over the top and hit Mitchell Robinson a lob. Like I've been dying to see that all year. And because Tom Thibodeau, I don't know if he just doesn't think of that or no one on his staff thinks of that. Like we just haven't seen it run, but that was something that worked really well for Minnesota last year. And to your point, like the like worst case scenario of that play is like you get a smaller player onto Cat and he can get into a step back three. He can get into a little bully ball drive. Like it gives you some optionalities. So would love more of that. Wanted to real quick shout out OG Anunoby because I feel like we keep saying that he's played well, but haven't mentioned a lot of it. Like again, just like the strength driving downhill, red hot from three. Again, early third quarter just had this crazy defensive sequence where he deflected a pass intended for Jordan Poole. Poole got it back, drove. Mikal switched onto him. So OG just X's out to the corner and then deflects the pass to the corner. Like that is just like guarding two guys at once, essentially. And then I thought what was essentially a game-ending play where Gill tried to drive on him and OG just stripped him. And then like a running back, like this looked like Adrian Peterson just dragging someone into the end zone. Like Harrington was basically riding on his shoulder and OG said, all right, hop on, and just took him right to the rim for a layup. Got another fast break layup the next play, made it 105-90. That put it away. And then finally, I wanted to shout out Cat's defense. Obviously, you look at who the opponent is and that was a big part of it, but maybe not in that third quarter. But early in this game, like he has so often this year been the guy guilty for the Knicks giving up transition buckets where he makes or misses a layup, falls down. The other team just goes 4 and 5 and scores. Like he was hustling back this entire game, picked off a pass in transition, had a chase down swat on Keyshawn George in the half court where OG Anunoby just held him up for a sec. Another one where he ran back in transition to get a piece of a shot. And then in the fourth quarter, like again, like in the midst of the Knicks making that 11-0 run, fought over two Wizards to tip an offensive rebound out, ended up drawing the foul, and then just bulldozes his way through Sarr for a layup. Like that sequence pretty much put the game away. So shout out to OG, shout out to Cat, shout out to playing the Wizards who did not want to win this game. And the Knicks finally getting back in the win column after two horrific losses. Hopefully they can continue it against the tanking Mavs. I don't know why I have a feeling that's going to be a close game, but whether it's close or not, Alex and I will be here to talk it through with you on Locked On Knicks. Until then, be good. We'll catch you soon.